What's up, YouTube? This is Carrie from Side Tripping with Carrie, and today we're out at Paradise Memorial Gardens. It's a cemetery and mausoleum here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it's very nice. It's probably one of the nicest cemeteries in the valley, at least one of the nicest that I've ever been to or visited. We're here today to talk about a guy who, if you grew up in any time in Arizona between, I'd say, like the 70s and the early 2000s, late 90s, you would know this guy. If you didn't know him by name, you would know him by voice. He was on the radio. He was a local radio personality here in Phoenix. His name was Bill Heywood, and he and his wife are interred here in a cremation niche inside the mausoleum. He, like I said, he was ubiquitous. He seemed like a really nice guy, and you know, it's kind of a shame how the end of his life, and the end of his wife's life, kind of coincided with each other in more ways than one, and it was really just a tragedy all the way around. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Go inside the mausoleum. And so here's the final resting place of Bill and Susan. And I'm going to head outside where the echo isn't so bad and we can talk some more. We saw the final resting place of Bill and Susan, and I wanted to kind of do it outside because there's the big time echo in the mausoleum itself, plus the section where Bill and Susan are, the lights weren't on. So, you know, that might be part of the reason why that part of the video didn't come out the way I wanted to. So Bill was born in Newton, Kansas in 1936, and I didn't know this until I was researching Bill, but his birth name was Bill or William Embry, and he was actually a really good basketball player, good enough to get a Division I scholarship offer, and he played for the University of Pacific, which is in Stockton, California. And yeah, I had no idea that he was a basketball player. He was about, I think he was about 6 feet, 6'1". So, and he played point guard, and I looked up his stats and they weren't bad. You know, he played 1 year, I guess, of varsity basketball, and he had about 6 points per game, and seemed to be a pretty integral part of the team. But the weird part is he only played for a year, and interestingly enough, I mean, his focus really was on the fine arts program at University of Pacific, specifically radio and TV. Now, when he graduated college, he got a job back in Kansas, worked there for a time before he headed west to Phoenix. And unlike a lot of guys in radio, you've probably heard the term a face for radio. Bill wasn't like that. I mean, Bill was a handsome man, a good-looking dude. And it's just kind of interesting that his career it just wasn't as, I guess, successful in the TV range as you would have thought it would have been. Again, he had a very engaging personality on the radio. He worked primarily in adult contemporary, which I guess would be like oldies. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really listen to his shows religiously. Back then in the 90s, particularly, I was the type of guy that was listening to, hate to admit this, but listening to Howard Stern. And I don't care what anybody says, it was really funny back then. But now, not so much. That guy's a shadow of what he used to be. But, you know, this bringing up Stern, some of these other heavyweights of radio, Don Imus, like even, God, you could even go into people like Rush Limbaugh that had radio programs that were heavily followed. These guys really made their money doing syndication. Like when their radio shows got syndicated and broadcast to different marketplaces, that's how these guys made a lot of money. Bill, unfortunately, you know, he didn't do that, or he wasn't able to do that. He was successful here locally, though. Don't get it twisted. He was a spokesman for Mel Clayton Ford, which was this Ford dealership here in town. And again, he was, wow, check out that. What the hell is that? Ground squirrel or something. Did appear in a movie. I can't remember whether it was a TV movie or whether it was a regular feature-length film, but it was something called like Night of the Comet, and it was about like some giant comet hitting Phoenix. So anyway, you know, life kind of went on. Bill got married, had a daughter, got divorced, and he married Susan, or he met and married Susan. And every indication I have is, and I saw this quote that said they were joined at the hip. So they were very, very, very close. Eventually, in 2005, Bill gave up radio. He stopped broadcasting and got into real estate, like high-end real estate here in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, you know, big expensive homes, that kind of thing. Then kind of some problems happened. One, the real estate market in Arizona, particularly around Phoenix, can be very tricky. It's kind of like feast or famine. I've got several friends of mine who are in real estate, and you know, either times are good or times are bad. Seems to be no middle ground. And Bill hit on some hard times. Complicating matters was Susan's health. Susan got ill, and from what I understand, it was a terminal illness, and she was, you know, not going to make it. Was doing very poorly health-wise. So back in the early part of 2012, the end of 2011, Bill and Susan, I guess, came upon this idea of doing what you don't hear really often much anymore, and it was a suicide pact, where they decided to basically kill each other. One killed the one person and then turned the gun on themselves, and that's what happened. I can't recall if there was a suicide note, but for all concerned, everybody that knew them, they kind of knew what the deal was. They went to a hotel here in Scottsdale and did the act there. One of the things I forgot to mention was, you know, when I said that Susan's health and the real estate market not doing well in Arizona, also Bill and Susan filed bankruptcy. Things were kind of that bad. They used to live in this kind of Tony neighborhood in Phoenix called the Biltmore, and they had to sell their house, or it was foreclosed on. They lost it, and so things weren't going well. I remember when this happened. I was living here in town, and I remember being just absolutely floored. I mean, shocked by the news. Just didn't seem like he would do that kind of thing, you know, or it wouldn't be driven to those kind of ends. But, you know, I don't know. I've got kind of, you know, mixed feelings about suicide. I had a good friend of mine who I used to work with, a fellow lawyer, who committed suicide. And I mean, that guy was he was personally the most brilliant lawyer I ever knew, personally. And he killed himself. And I remember one of the partners that he and I worked for, said, one of the things he said that kind of stuck with me, he said, you know, if he could come back and tell us why he did what he did, it still wouldn't make any sense. And I thought to myself, you got that right. But, you know, but then I've had conversations with my wife about it, and she said things like, you know, Carrie, you just don't know the pain that these people are going through, and how, you know, they're at the end of their rope, the end of their tether, and they feel like they've got no other way out but that. And I get that too, but, you know, I feel sorry. I feel sorry for Bill and Susan, quite honestly, and I feel sorry for their children who they left. I know he had a daughter with his first wife, and he and Susan had a couple of children as well, I believe, and they're all adults. So, you know, they're still around, but it's just shocking and really, really, really sad. You know, he had one of those voices, he had that really nice radio voice, you know, that I wish I could imitate, but I can't. But you know, just kind of one of those soothing radio voices, you know, just real smooth, and everything I read about the guy said that he was just a prince of a man, and I'm sure he's missed by the friends and his relatives and his children that are left behind. But I want to say rest in peace to Bill and Susan, and that's going to do it for this one, folks. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you're so inclined, please subscribe to the channel. That'd be a great help, and we will see you on the next one.